If you go to my website, stevecheka.posters.com, and you click on this blog post here, part 2, you're going to be able to download 3 PDF files. Each PDF file contains a calligraphy border template. The first one that you're looking at here is the full template. And this is sized for a couple of things. One is it's sized to print out on a sheet that is 11 by 17 for optimal printing. The second thing is it's designed for a calligraphy pen that is 2.4 millimeters wide. The reason for that is I'm using the Pilot system, Pilot Parallel Computer, or Pilot Parallel calligraphy pens, and the size I'm using happens to be 2.4 millimeters. And there's a couple of elements on each template that I'm going to direct you to right here. The first is you'll notice on the 4 corners that it looks like little tick marks or registration marks. Those are really important, and make sure that when you print them off, you leave them in the print file itself. You just print it as is. And the reason for that is going to come up a little bit later. The second thing is in the center of the image, there's another registration mark, and that's probably the most important one of all. And then you'll notice that there's a couple of lines here. In fact, there's quite a few lines. The lines that radiate from the center outwards basically are for the spacing, and to make sure that you have proper spacing with each stroke or element that you create. And you'll notice that the strokes in the inside of the circle are a little bit smaller than the ones on the outside. But the distance is small enough that it's not going to make that much of a difference. You just have to be mindful of that when you do the actual calligraphy. There's a couple of red lines on here as well. And the outer red lines will actually be turned into digital art later on. The inner red line is just a center point to line up your diamonds with. And then you'll notice there's a bunch of circles. There's 2 circles at the top there, and that's for your medallion. You can either include that in your calligraphy, or you can skip that. Now this one here, as I said, is a full sort of circle that will fit on 11 by 17 paper. The next one here that I'm going to show you is actually for a larger one. You can still do it with a 2.4 millimeter pen, but what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to take a piece of, and I'm going to recommend that we use Vellum for this project for a couple of reasons that I'll get onto a little later. But you're going to take the vellum, you're going to do half the calligraphy circle, and then you're going to flip it around, move the paper, and then do the other half of the circle. This will make more sense as we get into the next part of this. And then the third one, which I haven't actually done any calligraphy for, is an oval, and I want to give that a try later on. And this is also designed for 11 by 17 paper, and it's basically one full calligraphy border. The first photograph here you're looking at is actually the calligraphy template that was printed out on a piece of 11 by 17 paper. Underneath it is another sheet of blank 11 by 17 paper, and that's used as kind of a cushion for the pen. Both of these are taped onto a board that's a little bit larger than that, larger than 11 by 17, I should say. And then that board happens to be sitting on my drafting table. I actually did this work on my kitchen counter, actually. I didn't actually use my drafting board for this, although it makes for a nice photographic sort of area here. This shot takes a look at a little more detail here, and you can see the lines radiating out from the center. This template, by the way, was developed entirely in Inkscape, and if anybody's interested, they're more than welcome to get the copy of the template. What you're looking at here is, in this photograph, is the final calligraphy hand-done work on vellum paper, sitting on top of the template and the board that I did it on. In this shot here, you can see a little more detail of the paper and the board and the template. And then this shot, what I did just to try and show you here is I actually taped it onto the board with the correct registration marks lined up again. And that's kind of handy to keep those registration marks in there as long as you can, because if you ever have to take it off for whatever reason, you can put it back on in nearly the exact position. And that's a full shot of the border there on the board. And then this shot here actually is the second border. So this is a final piece of calligraphy that was done. It was the second piece. I never actually finished this work in GIMP or Inkscape as a digital product. It still stands as a final calligraphy piece on Vellum, but it's sitting on top of the border there. And in the next shot here, you can actually see the half border template with the full calligraphy piece and the registration tick marks as well in place. This is a shot of 3 borders put together here. So the one that's still taped to the board is the original one, the full one on 11 by 17 paper. The second one is a half, and the third one to the right happens to be the oval shot. And you can see my Pilot Parallel calligraphy pen, 2.4 millimeters there. And then this shot here is something I'm working on experimenting with, and that is placing text along the border itself. And this is how I do it. I actually place this paper on top of the border template, and then I draw the calligraphy, or I ink the calligraphy within that. I keep the registration marks in place, and then those arrows you see are the actual sort of ones that I like, and I'll probably end up scanning and integrating into a final piece. You notice it looks a little bit cluttered there, and that's because I'm making better use of the paper by just shifting it. And when I shift it, I have to redo the registration marks, of course. And you can see a little more detailed shot here of some of the ones that I liked. And I keep, if I make a mistake, like in the case of December, I had that first stroke I didn't like, I just move it to the side, because I know that when I post-process it, that error will come out and it'll be removed.